Going to be looking at different business communication tools such as email and text messaging, as well as phone calls. Mm. So the first thing I want you to understand is that in a business environment, you are going to send a lot of emails for different reasons. Some just a quick quote that you need, some to let people know there's a meeting coming up, just tons and tons of meeting or tons and tons of emails. Most people, however, do not want to read long emails. And so, what they're going to do is they are going to skim those long emails and oftentimes lose information in the process. So, you want to make sure that your messages are clear and concise and quick. Okay. So, your goal here is clear messages that are quick and very professional. All right. So, what we want to do is we want to choose the right tool for the message that you're trying to get across. Email is going to be for things that are pretty routine, simple, non emotional for sure. Calls and meetings, those are going to be for much more complex situations or emotional things, right? If you have a problem with someone. And then text messaging is actually being utilized quite a bit in businesses now. Or if it's not text messages, sometimes it is in-house, like a messaging service in-house. And those are for super quick questions, something that you need a quick answer to, doesn't need a lot of clarification, but you do need an answer. And in some cases, you will need to use a combination of these things. For example, a call or a meeting, you're going to discuss the complex situation or the issue. And then you might follow that up with an email with the minutes from the meeting or a follow up from what you discussed in that conversation. So know that using multiple is possible. What you don't want to use email for is conflicts and complaints, emotional messages, because they can be very misinterpreted. There's no facial expression, no body language to help with that communication. And so you want to keep those more in person and not in email. Any important decision should start with some kind of a conversation where you really discuss all the pros, the cons, all those kind of things. Email can be used for follow up to make the final decision, but you don't want everything to go through that email. So in order to keep emails very easy to read, these are just a couple of quick thoughts. You want to keep the subject line short. However, it also should be very explicit. I should be able to open up my email, know exactly what this email I'm about to read is about because I've read the subject line. Do not combine more than one subject in a single email. All right. If you have more than one topic, split it into two emails. Keep it brief. Try not to get too crazy in detail. That's more of a conversational piece. It really should just be those bullet points of what you talked about, or use bullet points when possible if you're trying to simplify the information. And then, of course, you want to clearly state what action you expect the person to take off of this email. So, do you need an answer by a certain time or date? Do you need them to actually go do something by a certain time or date? So clearly state what your expectation of their action should be. So, basic structure, what is the purpose of the email? Here are the key details. Here's the action I need you to take and the deadline I need it done by. You also want to make sure that you're respecting other people's time. So you don't want to send a whole bunch of emails that are unnecessary emails. If you are just sending it because you think people should know, then you probably don't need to send it. If it is something specific, if it has an intention, if it has a purpose, that's different. Be very clear about what you want or need them to do, and avoid long chains, right? So when you hit reply all so that everybody gets the answer, don't keep all of the two from every single one, right? Delete off that big chunk. All right, so professionalism really does matter. And I know sometimes it can be really, you just want to say, what time is the meeting? Or I am not able to get that done today, something like that. But you need to make sure that you are using proper grammar, that you include that greeting, even though they don't necessarily say, "Oh, he said hi, Greg," right? It's still important that it's there because it just starts that presence of appreciation, respect, and gratitude. And so you always want to make sure you include that. And you want to avoid slang and emojis. So these are really important aspects that just help give you credibility. It helps make the message really clear to understand and allows it to get to the point of what the message is without all of the extra. Tone can be incredibly tricky when it comes to emails. It is so easy to sound very, very negative in an email. It depending on the person's state of mind or their mood when they read an email, they might read an email as you yelling at them, even though you absolutely are not. So you want to be very cautious, and that's part of why we are so polite and so clear in emails. Even though it seems unnecessary sometimes, you want to make sure that you are not being interpreted as sounding negative, rude, or yelling in any way. Always reread your message before you send it. One, of course, you're proofreading, making sure that all your grammar, your spelling is all correct, that it reads properly, the autocorrect didn't turn it into something crazy. But you also want to kind of look and see, is there a way that this could be taken negatively, and make adjustments accordingly. If you are upset, I cannot stress enough, do not send anything immediately. Nope, do not do it because you are angry, you're frustrated, you're upset, you're going to be very emotional in your writing, and you may say things that you don't mean or you can't take back. So just wait, take your time, think through it, maybe write on a piece of paper what you're wanting to say so that you can get it out. But then you need to calm down and you really need to think about why did the situation happen? Why are you so angry or frustrated? What actually needs to be done in order to um, correct or fix the situation? And then start coming up with a conversation that you can have that's going to allow you to actually move forward. All right. So once you've written it down for your own sake on a piece of paper, separate, that you can then tear up and throw away, then you can start writing an email if you need to. But most likely, you probably just want to go and talk to that person once you're calm and you've had time to just think through things and just discuss the situation for them. Sometimes they don't even realize that they've upset you or frustrated you, and they really just need kind of to understand that that's where you're coming from. And then it's better from there. But if you yell at them, are accusatory, slanderous, any of those things, it escalates the situation instead of de-escalates. Right. So text messaging or messaging online, kind of like Facebook, there's in house chats that are kind of like Facebook messaging available. So any of that kind of thing is really for just really quick questions, but you have to be very, very clear, and you don't want to overuse it. If somebody is constantly having to answer your quick text messages for every tiny little question, they're going to get really annoyed and they're going to stop messaging you back. So make sure that you're not overusing it. You do want to still maintain proper etiquette. We don't want any bad messaging, right? So that informal language, hey, what's up? Nope, we don't want that. It still needs to be professional. What about the thing, right? That is way too vague. It doesn't tell me enough. It doesn't, you know how many other people that person is working with and how many other problems or questions they may have had that day. That thing doesn't tell them anything. So you need to be a little more specific. Make sure that you are not too vague. Give them a tiny history so that they know what you're talking about. Tell them this is what your question is, and then this is the answer that you're looking for. Okay. So, good messaging is a specific question, something that is very quick to answer and has very clear context. They understand what it's coming from. That's what that context portion means, right? The question is specific. There is a small detail that you need a question answered on. Where is the button for the power button for the machine? That's a very specific question. Understands the context because you tell them what machine, and it's quick to answer. It's on the lower left side. Okay. All right. Message overload is something that is absolutely real. We can be overwhelmed with messages, whether it's email, whether it's text messages, and understanding that we don't have to constantly be staring at our phone or constantly checking our email is important so that we can actually get work done for the day. However, with that being said, it is still important that you are checking on a regular basis because there are things that are going to come up throughout the day that need to be responded to. So, how do you handle that? First, don't check it constantly because, again, like I said, you'll never get anything done. Set a response time. So, when is an appropriate time or a good time for you to respond several times throughout the day, right? When you first arrive at work, you should absolutely be checking your emails. Right before you go to lunch, right when you come back from lunch, and maybe an hour before you leave for the day, for example. All right. This way, you are responding throughout the day. So it's a timely manner to reply. You're able to catch issues as they come up. And if your team knows that these are the times of day that you check your email, for example, and if they need an immediate or an emergency response, then you set a rule that they text you or whatever. So this is about setting rules in order to manage that overload. Turn off the notifications so that you're not seeing them constantly, as long as you actually stick to your rules and you check when you say you're going to check. All right. So when do you actually need to call? So if you need a fast answer, sometimes messaging, especially like you just saw, you might have someone who only checks their messages 3 or 4 times a day. If you need an instant answer, sometimes a phone call is a great way to do that. If it is a more complex issue, either calling or even having a conversation in person is going to be a better way to explain. Understand it still may have to be backed up with an email. Here's a really good example. My husband is an engineer and he takes really good care of his customers. He can be inside a machine, upside down, and he will still take a call if someone calls him. And the reason for that is because he assumes that when people call, they have an issue that is immediate and needs an instant answer. If not, they would email him. And so he'll take a call, but because he's in a machine and he's working on something, he's not able to write anything down. And so oftentimes, especially if it's a complex issue or if it is a schedule, something where he needs to schedule a maintenance guy to come out to that facility, he's going to need you to send him a email giving a brief synopsis of what you guys talked about and then what action needs to be taken. So it's a short email followed after the complex conversation on the phone. Okay. So confusion can happen, and this is kind of an example of that, right? So if you don't give enough information when you're talking or the follow-up email, then it's really easy to get things confused. For example, going back to that example of my husband being inside a machine, he has several businesses that he goes and he fixes machines at or he works on machines at. And there's one that is in northern Indiana, and there's one that is the way up in the UP. Both of the guys' names are Jim, and the names of their companies are very, very similar, but it is not the same company and it is not the same person. So sometimes, if both of those Jims call him in the same day with issues, if they don't send a follow up email, it's really easy to make some assumptions about where he thought that conversation was going or where that business was. So without those emails to follow up and clear information, it's easy to get even customers confused. All right, couple of phone tips. Make sure that when you are making that phone call that you are prepared, you know what you need to talk about, and you have all the information available to you. Be very clear about what the conversation is, what it has to do with, and try not to mix a lot of different problems in the same conversation. Okay. And then summarize what those next steps are, whether you are going to do something before they are expected to do something, or you need them to do something before you can do your next steps. Common mistakes, keeping a phone call too long, right? The longer the phone call is, it just drags out. All of a sudden, you start losing interest from one side or the other of the phone conversation because it's dragging on so long. It no longer is relevant, those kind of things. If you are unclear when you are calling and you're kind of scatterbrained and you don't know what's going on, it makes it so that it's a pointless conversation. So you really do have to be prepared. If you have the wrong tone, this may sound funny, but let's be honest. Sometimes we just have a bad day and our tone is gruff and we are not speaking well. And on to the person on the other end of that phone call, it can sound like you're being angry with them, even though you're not. Okay. And then finally, the wrong tool, right? So if you made a phone call, but really it should have been an email with, just something that they could follow up on later, then that can also be a mistake on a phone call. So the bottom line is any way that you message, whether it is phone call, whether it is email or messaging, you want to make sure that you are very clear, that you keep it as brief as reasonably possible, and be very professional. Picking the right channel can mean the difference between getting something done quickly and things kind of lingering or even getting confused along the way. Okay. All right, so I want to go through a few examples just so that you have a better idea of what we're actually talking about. So, first one we're going to do is an email. All right, so here is the message. It says subject help. That is so vague. It does not tell me anything other than he needs help with something, right? It says, hi, I have a question about the assignment. Can you explain it? So, from this perspective, this is a student, the subject, I have several different classes, right? I teach different courses. So, this doesn't tell me what class they're in. It doesn't tell me what the actual question is about the assignment. And it doesn't even tell me which assignment. So it's very, very vague. This is so vague. Okay. So this would mean that I would have to go back and say, what class are you in? What assignment are we talking about? What is your question about the assignment? So if the other person on the other end of that conversation has to come back with you with more questions just to understand how to answer it, it's definitely too vague. All right, so an improved message would have been a subject question about the marketing plan assignment requirements. Well, that makes more sense right now. Instantly, when I go to before I even open that email, I know exactly what he's going to ask me a question about, right? Hi, Professor Smith. I'm working on the marketing plan and wanted to clarify the target audience section. Okay, now I know exactly which section we're talking about. Should we focus on one specific group or multiple segments? Thank you, and signed them. Okay, so you can see this is very clear and concise. I know exactly how to answer this question. I know exactly what they're asking me. I know exactly what class we're in, what assignment we're talking about. So this is much more clear. Okay. Did it really take that much longer to write the improved message versus the bad message? No. Did it take a little bit more thought? Only a little. They were already thinking all these things. They just didn't write them all down. Okay. So why is it better? Because it is specific. All right. It's a specific subject. It is a clear question, and this is so much easier and faster for me to respond to. We're not going back and forth with emails. All right, let's do another one. All right, so in this email, subject project. I mean, again, here we're assuming that I know what project we're talking about. I know what class we're talking about. Hi, everyone. I've been thinking about the project and I have some ideas, but I'm not sure if they're good. And I also wanted to see what everyone else thinks, and maybe we should meet, but I'm not sure when I'm free yet. So just let me know what you all think. Okay, first off, did you hear the way that that read? It was so hard to read, right? There's several things going on there, and I'm not totally sure, like right off the top of my head, not really sure what he's asking. So it's super unclear, and it's definitely too long. It does not get his point across at all. So an improved way to do this is to say, change that subject line, project ideas and meeting availability instantly. I know what we're talking about, right? Hi, everyone. I have an idea to focus our project on social media marketing. Okay, great. Not only did he have an idea, but he told me what the idea was. Can you share your thoughts? That's the action that he wants me to take. Also, I'm available Thursday after 3 to meet. Does that work for you? So he's telling me his availability, and now I need to look at my schedule and say, okay, after 3 o'clock, what are my options? Do I have any availability? So I know exactly what I'm looking for to try to match his schedule. So instead of it being random, especially up here, if we look, it says, I'm not sure when I'm free yet. Well, okay, that means that whatever I tell you is going to work, right? But it's not because he doesn't know when he's free. Here, he's giving me a specific option. And he's not saying Thursday at 3 o'clock. He's saying Thursday after 3. So that gives me some flexibility on what I can do. So why is this better? It's short, it's organized, it clearly asks for a specific response, right? What are your thoughts on this idea? Do you have any other thoughts? And what is your meeting availability? All right, next up. In this one, the subject, missed assignment. Hey, I didn't get the assignment because I was really busy. Can I turn it in later? All right. So this really is just an unprofessional tone, right? It's very nonchalant. There's very little respect in this. Let's look at a better option. All right. So missed assignment, that's the subject and the bad one. The better subject is request for extension on assignment. Right. So this is telling me you did something wrong. This is saying I'm hopeful that you will allow me to correct my mistake. I was unable to complete the assignment on time due to multiple deadlines this week. I apologize for the inconvenience. Would it be possible to submit it late? Thank you for your consideration. Signed the student. So here you can see they are being polite, they are being considerate and of my time as the professor. And they are being clear in what they are hopeful that will happen, right? They're asking if it would be possible for it to be submitted late. Okay. So why is this one better? It uses respectful tone and takes responsibility for the mistake that they made. All right, next one. In this email, subject is group meeting. Hi, we should meet to work on the project. Cool. All right, so this is me missing a ton of key information, right? So let's look at the better option here. Subject line, instead of just group meeting, it says Thursday at 4 p.m. Hi, team. Can we meet Thursday at 4 p.m. in the library to work on the project? We will finalize our outline and assign roles. Let me know if you can attend. So here, this is very specific. So we should meet to work on the project says very little. It doesn't tell me exactly what we're working on. It doesn't allow me to be prepared, and it doesn't tell me when or where to be anywhere. This one here, the second one, the improved one, tells me exactly what day and time they are hopeful to meet. I can always counter that with a different time if it doesn't work. Where to meet in the library, and what parts of the project are we looking at? The outline and the assigned roles. This allows me to prepare ahead of time for what I need. And then the action they want me to take is let me know if you can attend. So this is better because it includes time, place, purpose, and expectations. All right, group chats, they are very, very popular and used quite often, especially in group work. Is anyone going to finish their part? I bet you can guess this one. Yep. Passive communications, right? Passive aggressive. We do not ever want to send passive aggressive messages. Instead, we should send something like, Hi, everyone, just checking in. When do you think your sections will be ready? I want to make sure we have time to review everything before submitting. So this is just more courteous and polite. And instead of being so passive aggressive, is anyone going to finish their part? It's simply saying, when do you think your section will be ready? Right? So this one assumes you're never going to do it. This one's asking when you're going to be ready. So encourages responses without sounding accusatory, right? Okay. All right. Group chat. Here's another one. What are we doing again? It's way too vague. What are we doing again? Okay, so can someone confirm what we decided for the introduction section? So here again, this is much more specific. I want to make sure I'm working on the right part. And it's just that you've gotten a little bit confused. Let's be honest. Sometimes we have several groups or several classes with several group projects going on, and it's easy to get them confused or I don't know, just yeah. So be specific when you ask a question and make sure that it's something that can give a helpful answer. Okay. All right. Here's another email. Subject, your section. You never sent your part. We need it already. All right. This is very poor tone. It sounds incredibly rude, and it just sets a bad atmosphere for group work, especially. Okay. An improved way to do that would be to say, "Hi, so and so. I wanted to check in about your section of the project. We're planning to compile everything tomorrow. Do you have an update on your progress?" Right? So the next thing here is that instead of making the automatic assumption that they are doing something wrong, you are now saying, here's the timeline that we set previously and that we still continue to plan to follow through with. We just want an update so that we know what to expect from your portion. And this gives the student in question an opportunity to say, oh gosh, guys, I'm so sorry I forgot, or I'm behind, or I'm working on it. And then that gives the rest of the group an opportunity to say, how can we help? Right. So instead of being accusatory, sounding rude, having poor tone, you're approaching the situation with, how can we help? And that's very different. All right. So it removes blame and keeps the tone very professional. All right. Just a couple more, guys. All right. In this one, subject update. Hi, we talked about doing social media or flyers, and someone needs to look at cost. And we also need to decide on the audience and timeline. So just let me know what you think. So this one is very, very common where it just kind of is spewing everything at once. And really, the problem here is that there is no structure. It makes it really hard to read. Okay. Even as I read it just then, it was very choppy, right? So an improved message would be to use bullet points, right? Hi, team. Well, first off, the subject line, right? Instead of update, project update, and next steps. So, hi, team. Are our next steps. Decide between social media or flyers, assign someone to research cost, define target audience, and create timeline. Let me know your thoughts. They honestly both say the same thing, but one is so much easier to read because the structure makes it defined. Okay, so using those bullet points makes it so much easier to read and to process the information a lot quicker on the audience side. All right, here's a text message. Hey, can you send me the assignment? LOL, I need it. Okay, so this is very, very common text slang, right? Using the you instead of writing out the word, LOL in the middle of the sentence. This is just way too casual. When we are in class or when we are in a business setting, we want to make sure that we are always using a professional tone. And there's so many reasons for that. One, what if they need to show your message to someone else in order to get the answer? If it's too casual, you just look like a slacky, right? Someone who can't take the time or be bothered to do it correctly. So instead, just take one more moment and finish that out, right? So, hi, could you please send me the assignment notes when you have a chance? I'd appreciate it. So I need it is very demanding. I'd appreciate it is much more polite and courteous. It's so easy for things to be misinterpreted, especially if you use so much slang. Okay. Additionally, one of the things that I've seen in the workforce is when people text the letter K instead of saying okay, or I'll get right on that, or whatever. It honestly is kind of a trigger and makes people very angry. So this is more polite and appropriate for academic and professional settings. Okay. All right. Last one. Last one. All right. In this one, subject, this isn't working. I'm frustrated because no one is communicating and I feel like I'm doing everything. Let's be honest. We have all been in a situation where this is how we feel. We feel like we're doing everything, no one is helping, and no one will tell you what's going on, and it's incredibly frustrating. But how you handle that situation is going to be a huge difference between escalating the frustration versus coming to an understanding about what needs to be done and how to communicate it appropriately. So this one is an emotional reaction, and you really, really want to try to avoid these. It's easy to do, but it is a mistake. So, a better way to do this is to say your subject is a project check in. Hi, team. I'd like to make sure we're all on track. Can we share updates on our progress and confirm next steps? So, this is the exact same information. The frustration is still there, but now you're actually giving them a way to respond without feeling like they want to say lots of bad words to you. Right. Instead, now they just want to give you the update. Here's where I'm at, and next steps are these. Okay. So it removes emotion and it focuses on solving the problem. All right. That is the key component. Always understand you're trying to get to an end goal. What is the end goal and how are you actually going to get there? Because using that frustration to put blame on others is never, ever going to get you to that end goal. Okay. All right, so those are just a couple of examples. Hopefully, it gave you some ideas on the differences between um, bad messages versus good messages and how to improve them. Your activity for the week, you are actually going to go through and try to define or understand which kind of a message the bad message is, and then you're going to rewrite those messages. So if you have questions, let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.